Alright, hey, it's Connor. We're doing an unscripted thingamajig today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit. We're going to cover a couple of things. First off, we're going to talk about the new monsters out of the beta, because in case you haven't watched the stream VODs and everything, you might want what my opinion is of Arkveld and Gypceros too. We'll talk about him. And then a little bit towards the end, we're going to talk about some updates regarding the celebration and critique of Monster Hunter World. So we're going to cover a bunch of stuff right now. We're going to hammer all that out on this lovely little Monday. Important stuff first. Arkveld's awesome. It really is. Combat-wise, 6th generation flagships are off to a pretty damn good start. Also, design-wise, sound design-wise, music-wise, this is, in terms of gameplay, a very well put together creature. It's one of those types of monsters that I find myself really enjoying, where the combat is deceptively erratic and weird and hard to read and just feels impossible to kind of figure out. But then you actually pay attention, you fight him 2 times, maybe 3 times, and the telegraphs get a little bit easier, and you get to pick up on the sound cues a little better, and the different maneuverings of his whips and his wings and all that start to flow a little bit better. And you actually get kind of a better taste of what he's doing. And then just bit by bit by bit, it starts to click, and that's when it starts feeling great. I'll also say Arkveld is an awesome, awesome monster to showcase off the perfect block parry system and perfect evade system that we have in the game. Because what I like about him a lot is, although his whips are really erratic and all over the place and flailing all over, there is kind of a lot of heft and weight and strength behind a number of his attacks. At the same time, though, doesn't fall into kind of like an Elden Ring trap of super delayed attacks. The windups are a little long, but that's because the animations are very, very hefty. So there's still pretty honest telegraphs that really aren't trying to bait you out too bad, and it feels incredible to just hear the crunch of that perfect block every single time you can get it. And he's not particularly difficult to perfect block. At the same time, I'm kind of glad that the system isn't too spammable, that you don't just get the clash over and over and over again. Even if you're really consistently getting him, I think it's really tough to get to a 3rd power clash, which is pretty nice, that you can rip out that system over and over and over again with the perfect blocks and get those counter strikes off, but it's not guaranteed to just stun lock him a billion times, which is pretty nice. He can be a little bit bullyable with just the amount of weak points that you can put on him, though that might potentially be kind of an overarching issue that the wounds have. I know with like Bo especially, you can kind of melt him just because he's so big bodied that you can put a lot of weak zones on him. And when he does his super giant Omega explosion attack, he opens himself up pretty good there too. I don't think that's necessarily a him issue. I think that is potentially an issue with the wound system being particularly generous in this game. But Arkveld himself, there's very, very little to complain about. His windups are nice and readable. He has some distinct sound cues for certain attacks, so you can tell what he's about to do before he does it, even if it looks like all of his attacks are just these kind of gobbledygook, waving around, big tendril looking things all over the place. He is readable once you learn it, and I really, really like that kind of stuff. So it makes him particularly satisfying. I think he's a really, really well put together fight with a pretty good grab bag of attacks. Does a lot of very similar things differently enough. He uses the whip wings a ton, but it's different kinds of slams and strafes and leaping up into the air and then reposition, pulling himself down. He's got some moves where he'll kind of fly around the zone a little bit while dragging the wings to give him some get off me tools. He's got a grab, which is a little bit tough to read as anything other than a normal telegraphed whip slam attack, so he can catch you up with that a little bit. He's got a couple of ranged options, but he's not too spammy with it, and they're more kind of like medium ranged than anything. He's got a couple of pretty solid combos on him, so you really want to be careful not to overcommit off of one successful block, because then you might be setting yourself up to get hit by something else. But if you can read those combos, that's satisfying in and of itself. Yeah, just really not much to complain about. The theme is excellent. A lot of people have been talking about the theme. It's the sound design in general with both the music and the monster audio and everything sounds exemplary. This definitely feels like it's kind of a phase 1 or a chaotic version of the theme. A lot of people are talking about the fact that this is probably a kind of precursor to what Arkveld might truly be capable of as the story goes on. This one is specifically designated as Chained Arkveld, so this is, again, probably a lead up to where this monster actually goes once we get towards the end of Wilds' story, if speculation is to be trusted. And the theme kind of reflects that. I mean, one, there is a major chunk of it from one of the trailers that isn't in the theme, but you can kind of hear the bits of that motif when you listen for it. It's just a little bit less understated. So this is a lot more erratic and kind of dark and violent of a theme, whereas the probably main version of it that we'll get with the full powered version of Arkveld in the main game sounds like it is probably going to be the bigger, more bombastic, melodic version of the track, which I'll be excited to have both of those. But the Chained Arkveld theme is particularly excellent. And like I was saying, so is the sound design. A lot of just really bizarre kind of ghastly, ghostly howls and braying and whatnot. Very kind of haunting sounding, and I think they kind of fit that in with the white wraith nomenclature that they give him. Is not even just kind of the fact that it's a very mysterious animal, but there is kind of a haunting aspect to his sound design. It's a particularly spooky monster to just kind of hear in the distance. We were kind of hoping that Arkveld wasn't going to be in the second demo, but we also kind of figured that that was totally going to happen. It's just what they've done. I think they've been doing this since they've been doing Monster Hunter demos, basically, has been putting the flagship in there as a fight with bloated health. The health is pretty chunky. I'm seeing a lot of people are definitely able to beat him, though. I've been able to time him out a number of times by myself. Haven't been able to beat him solo, beat him in groups a couple of times, though. But I do think it's funny that for the most part, everyone was like, oh man, I hope he's not in it. I hope he's not in it. And then everybody fought him and it was like, oh my god, he's so great. I'm so glad I fought him. I miss fighting him, da-da-da-da-da. Oh, there might be a second more powerful version of him in the full game, which if there is a second more powerful version, I think that's a really, really cool way to have your flagship be in the demo and then not like fully give away the whole experience. I'm very interested in what the story is going to be, on what the more powerful version of it's going to be. So it seems like it's kind of a plot line of it storing up energy and probably stealing energy from the different apexes and whatnot. So, I mean, we'll see what this thing is capable of. I'm super excited. But yeah, no. The design's great, the sound design is excellent, the music is really cool, the fight is a lot of fun, it works very well for the mechanics built into this game. It's a little bullyable with the wound system, but I don't really put that on Arkveld, I put that on the wounds more so. I think the telegraphs are pretty good, I'm glad it's not overly delayed attacks. I like that it's a particularly crazy fight that you can still learn to read pretty well. Mechanically, I have zero complaint. So if the story for Arkveld is particularly good, then I think we're set up to have another just absolute top liner for flagships and Monster Hunter. Just consistently excellent across the board. I've already seen people comparing him to how they feel stacked up against the 5th generation flagships. Pretty tough for me to say without story presence and without a lot of repetition. Malzeno is still a very, very heavy hitter for me in terms of combat and in terms of design and music and some story presence and stuff like that. So we're gonna have to see. Arkveld's high up there though. Really, really, really liking him. And I do definitely want to touch on Gypceros. I think Gypceros is kind of a little bit overlooked just because it's not Arkveld and Arkveld is so crazy cool. But I do kind of want to talk about some of the changes that Gypceros got, as I think they did a pretty damn good job interpreting what is probably one of the single most least liked monsters of all time. Definitely on the bottom of a lot of people's list that I've talked to. So what I think is kind of neat about the 6th generation version of Gypceros is a lot to do with punishes and follow-ups and a lot to do with how the head crest works now. Gypceros, I think, always kind of struggled with being a very kind of spastic grab bag type of monster, where he does a lot of stuff, an impressive amount of stuff for how old of a monster he is. In terms of 1st and 2nd generation, there's not a lot of monsters with the amount of stuff that he does, but it feels very kind of slapdash with him. He just kind of tosses things out. It's very grab baggy, and that kind of resulted in a monster that I think annoyed a lot of people. With the 6th generation Gypceros, there seems to be a good deal more synergy with how everything works, with how the flash works and the poison works and the tail and everything, and they made the head crest a dual break so that it's a little bit, you gotta work for it a little bit more. If you're being really persistent with the head break, it's gonna go out at about maybe around like half health. We had a couple of fights where we weren't like super duper focusing the head, and it didn't break until he was at like 80% health. Gypceros crests usually get crushed pretty quick in the older games, but with it being a dual break and all that stuff, it takes a little bit longer, so it's a little bit more of a major player in the fight, which is nice. The flash itself feels a little bit smaller than it used to be. It has a pretty decent designation for how big it's gonna be. I like the lighting effects for it a lot. They changed how the stun animation off of it works. He also has some immediate tail hit follow-ups if you do get flashed. You can mash out of it quick enough to not get hit, but if you're not mashing fast enough, you are gonna get hit, so you do have to work for that. I like that he punishes you a little bit easier, and it's not a guaranteed punish if you do get knocked for it, but you do have to be quick with it though. You do need to get the mashing down, you do have to roll out of it, or the tail is going to come down. I'm wondering if probably a master rank version of Gypceros is going to be even faster with the tail hits. Speaking about the rubber tail, they gave him a lot more moves with it. It is far, far, far more of a factor than it ever was. With the classic Gypceros, it really just meant that his tail whip was deceptively longer of a hitbox than it used to be. Now he has it as a punishment off of his flash attack. He has multiple long-reaching slams off of it for a little bit of heal punishing. He's got a huge combo where he'll just slap the ground with it multiple times in a row to try and catch you in kind of an arc going that way. And then his poison is also incorporated a little bit more into the fight, or rather, they give him more poison moves. They actually took a couple of notes from the master rank version of Pookie and give him not just his traditional kind of running around poison globs, like kind of side to side toss, but after that, he'll kind of do the strafing off to the side toss where he'll kind of run at you at an angle and just lob poison shots horizontally, kind of like broadsiding you with them. So he has a couple of maneuvers where he'll just try to pelt you with poison. Something also kind of interesting, especially with the straight shot version of his poison lobbing attack, is that a lot of his poison shots don't have a lot of knockback. So something I kind of found myself getting baited into was when I was getting hit with the poison globs and then not taking a lot of damage from it, I would just kind of keep attacking because I'm not taking the knockback. So I don't kind of have that feedback loop in the brain that I need to disengage and heal off. But then it'll just kind of lob another thing of poison at you and lob another thing of poison at you and just kind of chip damages you to death because you're getting lazy and aggressive and you're not really registering that you're taking a lot of damage while you're getting chipped away and you're getting smacked around by something else. So Gypceros can kind of stack a little bit of damage if you're being kind of stupid and not really paying attention to your health bar, because the poison doesn't always do the hit stun to kind of tell you that you need to help yourself. He's got a couple of flaily charges and whatnot. It's still very classic Gypceros moveset, but there's just a lot more. There's more with the poison, there's more with the tail, there's more with the flashes. There's just a lot more depth to how he works, and depth is something that he definitely needed because he felt just like very helter-skelter, very slapdashed in the older games. Now he does more with his traits. They feel a lot more thought out. They flow together a lot more. There's a little bit more effort to get them to be taken out of the fight. I don't think he steals items anymore, though his pecking attack can inflict poison now, which is sensible. But I haven't had anything stolen from me when I've got pecked before. The fake out death is still there, and he can also try and do his flash attack when his crest is broken. You know, with some of the smarter monsters, I kind of think it would be neat if he had an animation where he realizes that his crest is gone, kind of panics, and then never tries to do the flash again, because otherwise you can kind of just bully him when he tries to spam his flash, but there's nothing there to it. I still like the dynamic part break, and the advantageous hits are still nice, but I think just making them a little bit smarter would feed into the personality a little bit. The play dead, I think they kind of tooled around with in a way that they shouldn't have, where they make him twitch a little bit before he gets back up. I think that's more generous than it needs to be. I think something else cool that they totally could have done is if something like a raid out showed up, then you would see Gypceros kind of doing his play dead animations in front of another monster to kind of throw him off. That was something that was maybe like a little bit of a stretch for programming wise, but I was kind of hoping they would do that. Overall, this is a major improvement. It's not like a list-topping monster now or anything like that, but they did him a lot of justice, and I think really kind of realized the vision of this guy significantly better. And the final thing I wanted to cover is talking about the celebration critique of World Video. I'll timestamp all of this stuff so that you can tell where what is if you're interested in any particular kind of topic. So the way things are looking, not even the way things are looking, the video is definitely not going to be done before Wild gets out. Not for lack of effort, though there are a couple of days that could have worked a little bit longer. I mean, that's with everything, right? But the video is going very, very well, and I can promise that it's not going to be locked in some development hell type of thing where it just never comes out. Even when Wilds comes out, I'm going to have other content to do for the main game. It's still going to be kind of on the backlog to be done in between other projects, and I'm going to be racing to get as much done with it as possible before Wilds debuts, but I'm still want to just get it right. That's kind of the reason why it is not going to be done before the game comes out, is there was a lot of just rumination and structuring and a bit of admittedly analysis paralysis when it came to a lot of the analytical stuff in terms of the gameplay. World is a game that introduced a lot of stuff to Monster Hunter, and it has a lot of systems to it to think about. So I've spent a good chunk of my January just kind of really thinking about what I thought about the game and how the mechanics interacted with one another, what my opinions actually were. And it resulted in, I don't want to say wasted time, but not quite as much work done in January as I was hoping. But things are going well. The tougher parts of the scripts are written out at this point. Some of the really more in-depth and complex mechanical stuff has been scripted through. There is definitely probably about 2 hours scripted already, just based kind of like how the page count typically seems to go. And like I said, the most complex stuff I have done, a lot of stuff has been recorded. A lot of what's been recorded has been manually edited, so that's that work done. And I have a ton of footage collected. I think in terms of footage gathered off of World, I probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 hours. So there's a lot of stuff done. There will continue to be a lot of stuff done. We still have a little over 2 weeks before the game comes out. So I will hope, the plan is for the script to be completely done and recorded with some video stuff done by the time the game comes out. If that's all done, then it's just going to be video editing when Wilds is out, and that is the easiest part of the process, which is kind of why stuff like this takes so long, is that the toughest stuff is the stuff that you got to get through first. So optimistic about the project. It's definitely going to be farther back than I thought. I do apologize for that. I don't think anybody minds so long as the video is done correctly, and that is why it is taking so long, is that it is being done correctly. I wanted to make sure that I had a point to my arguments and that I could substantiate them in a concise manner. So yeah, I hope you guys have been enjoying the second beta. Should be coming back in a couple of days as of recording and uploading this. Let me know what you think about Arkveld and Gypceros. I hope you're also excited about Wilds coming out and about the video coming out and all that. A lot of very, very positive things to say about Wilds so far. Very excited. Arkveld and Gypceros being as good as they are definitely kind of was a little bit of a reignition, with there being a pretty hefty news drought in the really kind of back end of 2024. Wilds was kind of slipping out of the mind a little bit, but then that trailer comes in, and then Arkveld is really good, Gypceros is really good, and we're getting some news again and all that kind of stuff. I'm reignited, I'm hyped. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you for bearing with me and listening to what I had to say in this unscripted whatever the hell it was. Yeah, awesome. So I'll talk to you guys really soon. This has been CR-Volcanic or Connor. I'll see you around. Shout out to all the patrons, and special shout out to Certified Rajang Hater, Dat Boy Doin Da Ding, Ketz, Lander Moon, Nihilist Chimerax, Peaberry, Psychotic Jester, Shaggy Grizzly, Sir Newt Newt, Stromlin, Call Sign Shadow, I Think I Stole Your Sandwich, Pecco Plush, and Sir SS Jacob. Thank you very much, everyone.